I was sitting in the dentist's waiting room when my phone rang. It was my only son, Marcus. His voice sounded strange, almost cold as he said, "Dad, we're going on a trip to Asia tomorrow. I already sold your mountain cabin and your van. We needed the money. Bye." And he hung up just like that. 45 years raising him, sacrificing for him, and he discarded me like garbage. But I took a deep breath and smiled, because there was something my dear son didn't know. My name is Anthony Brooks. I'm 71 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew my son. I had become a widower 8 months ago. My wife, Rebecca, had passed away from a stroke while we were having lunch, just as we had done every afternoon for 45 years. That afternoon, she had served me tea with sugar and biscuits. As always, she had kissed my cheek and said, "Good afternoon, my love." Those were her last words. Since then, Marcus had been more present in my life, or so I believed. He came to visit twice a week. He helped me with the memorial arrangements and accompanied me to the hardware store. He even suggested I see a specialist for a routine exam. "Dad, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," he'd say with that smile I thought was affection, but now I understood was for convenience. The mountain cabin had been our retreat for years. Rebecca and I bought it when Marcus was 12, with a lot of hard work and sacrifice. Every winter we'd go there, building memories, celebrating anniversaries and Thanksgivings. Marcus would bring his girlfriends and later his wife, Victoria. I would fix meals for everyone, repair things, and handle the chores. It was our family tradition. I never thought he'd see it as just money. And the van, that old Dodge minivan Rebecca cared for like her own child. She'd polish it every Saturday, rotate the tires religiously, and always park it in the same spot under the garage awning. Marcus knew what that van meant to me. It was the last thing I had left of her. Her perfume still lingered on the cushions. When he hung up, I stayed there on that uncomfortable blue vinyl chair, surrounded by other patients, and for the first time in months, I didn't break down. Something strange happened inside me, a calm I hadn't felt since Rebecca's death, because in that moment, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 4 days before she died, Rebecca had handed me a brown folder. "Anthony, put this in the cabinet of your workshop. If something happens to me, open it after a while, but only when you feel ready." I had put it away without much thought. After the memorial, with so much grief and so many arrangements, I simply forgot. But there it was, waiting for me at home. The assistant called me to go into the room. The specialist examined me and said I was in good health for my age, that I just needed to exercise more and sleep better. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about that folder, about the coldness in Marcus's voice, and how Victoria was probably behind all of it. She had never liked me. She always saw me as a bother. I left the room and walked slowly to the train station. I no longer had a van, according to Marcus. But as I waited, I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about all of this. My son thought he had left me with nothing, but what he didn't know was that Rebecca, my dear Rebecca, had always been a woman who planned ahead. The train arrived and I sat by the window. I watched the town go by. The shops, the parks, people hurrying everywhere, all with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had my own, too, and I was about to discover them. When I got home, I went straight to my workshop. I opened the cabinet drawer, and there was the brown folder, exactly where I had left it. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I could feel there were several documents inside. Rebecca had written my name on the front in her tidy handwriting. I sat on the bench we had shared for so many years and took a deep breath. It was starting to get dark outside, and the house was filling with those familiar shadows that no longer scared me. I opened the folder slowly, as if unwrapping a holiday gift. What I found inside would change everything. What I found in that folder took my breath away. There were legal documents, titles, investment portfolios, and a handwritten letter from Rebecca. My eyes filled with tears as I read her familiar handwriting. "My dear Anthony, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worries. Over the years, I invested our savings in real estate and ventures. We don't just have the mountain cabin, we have 5 other properties, including the office complex where Marcus and Victoria live. We also have stakes in 4 companies that are worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You always were rich, but now you are on paper too. My hands trembled as I looked through the documents. There were titles to condos in various town districts, a suburban villa, a modest inn by the lake, and indeed the 15-story office complex where my son lived. Rebecca had been the silent owner for the past 12 years, but had put everything in the name of a firm I didn't know about, and according to the papers, I was the sole heir of that firm. There were also financial statements for accounts I never knew existed, with numbers that seemed unreal. Rebecca had been a teacher for 40 years, but apparently she had also been a very smart investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, she had multiplied in silence, and I never knew anything. In the letter, Rebecca explained that she had kept it all a secret because she didn't want me to worry about money or for Marcus to know about our real financial situation. You know, our son, Anthony, if he knew we had so much money, his attitude would change. I want him to love us for who we are, not what we have. What irony. Our son had left us thinking we had nothing, when in reality, we had everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked around the house, touching the old tools and the mementos Marcus had always criticized for being outdated. I looked at the family photos on the wall, especially the one where he was 7 years old, sitting on Rebecca's lap and laughing. Where did that sweet little boy go? When did he become so cold, so calculating? The next day, early in the morning, the phone rang. It was Marcus again. His voice sounded different, softer, but I had already learned to be wary of those shifts in tone. "Dad, how are you? I wanted to tell you we already transferred the money from the cabin and the van. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it'll help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller." "My share?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Yes, Dad. We obviously weren't going to leave you with nothing. We gave you 40%. That's fair, right? We need the money for our investment in Asia. Victoria has an incredible business opportunity over there." 40% of my own things. How generous. I see. "Son, and when do you leave?" "This evening. Our bags are already packed. We'll be gone for at least 4 months, maybe more if the business goes well. But don't worry, Dad. When we get back, we'll help you find a small condo, something that fits your needs." Fits my needs, as if he knew what my needs were. "Okay, Marcus. Have a safe trip." "Oh, Dad, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. We love you so much." And he hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, and for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't since Rebecca died. The situation was so absurd, it was comical. My son had robbed me, kicked me out of my own cabin, talked to me with unbearable condescension, and all to fund an Asian adventure that would probably be a disaster. But what bothered me most wasn't the money. It was the ease with which he had discarded me. 45 years of my life dedicated to him, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, and he had erased me from his life with a 2-minute phone call. That was what truly hurt. I checked my bank account online. Sure enough, they had deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them, but to me was a mockery. They had sold the mountain cabin for much less than it was worth, likely because they needed the cash quickly, and they had sold Rebecca's van for a pittance. That afternoon, from my window, I watched Marcus and Victoria load their suitcases into a limo. She was carrying 2 huge suitcases. He had a very expensive-looking briefcase. I watched them laugh, kiss, and make plans. They looked like 2 teenagers excited for an adventure. They never looked toward my window, never said goodbye. When the limo drove away, I sat in the den with a cup of coffee and Rebecca's documents spread out on the table. I had to make some decisions. I could call a lawyer, reclaim my properties, and get back everything they had taken, but something told me there was a better way to handle this, a more educational way. I called Mr. Patterson, the lawyer who had handled Rebecca's affairs. He had been at the memorial, had given me my condolences, and had told me to call if I ever needed anything. Well, now I needed him. "Mr. Brooks, it's good to hear from you. How are you?" "I'm doing well, Mr. Patterson. I need to see you urgently. I found some documents from Rebecca that I don't quite understand." "Of course, you can come to my office tomorrow morning." "I'll be there." That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Rebecca. She was sitting in her favorite rocker, knitting a scarf, just like every evening, and when she saw me, she smiled and said, "It's about time, my love. It's about time you stood up for yourself." I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly happiness, but it wasn't the sadness I had felt for so many months either. It was something like determination. For the first time since Rebecca's death, I had a clear purpose. I was going to get back what was mine, but not in the way Marcus expected. The next morning, I got dressed with more care than usual. I put on my navy blue suit, the one Rebecca always said made me look distinguished. I combed my hair and put on a little aftershave, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw a man I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw a strong man. Mr. Patterson's office was uptown. It was an old but elegant building, with wooden floors and large windows. He greeted me with a warm smile, but when I showed him the documents, his expression changed completely. "Mr. Brooks, this is much more than I imagined. Rebecca was a very smart woman. Look, according to these papers, you are the owner of—" "I know, Mr. Patterson. I've already reviewed them. What I need to know is what I can do legally." Mr. Patterson explained that everything was in order, that the documents were legitimate, and that I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He also confirmed something I had already suspected. The sale of the mountain cabin was illegal because Marcus had no right to sell it. "We can get the cabin back immediately, Mr. Brooks, and we can also proceed with legal action against your son for fraud." "No, Mr. Patterson, I don't want to proceed with legal action. I want to do this another way. I want everything to remain a secret for now. Can you help me?" He looked at me with curiosity, but he nodded. "Of course, you are my client. What do you need?" "I need you to discreetly get the mountain cabin back, do what is necessary to nullify that fraudulent sale, and I need you to help me gain real control of all my properties, especially the complex where my son lives." "I understand. It will be a process that takes a few weeks, but it's completely feasible." "Perfect. And Mr. Patterson, I need no one to know I am behind all of this, at least for now." When I left his office, I felt as if I had woken up from a very long dream. I walked through the uptown streets, watching the people, the buildings, the life that was going on as normal. But for me, everything had changed. I had a plan. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widower who had been abandoned by his son, but in secret, I was a rich man silently orchestrating the recovery of my assets. Mr. Patterson worked efficiently, and every few days he would call me with updates on the progress of the legal proceedings. I decided to stay in my house for the time being. It was mine, after all, although Marcus probably expected me to move into a studio. Every morning I would wake up, have breakfast at the same table where Rebecca and I had shared so many years, and then go for a walk in the park. The neighbors would greet me with that mix of pity and curiosity they reserved for recent widowers. Amelia, my lifelong neighbor, came up to me one evening while I was mowing the lawn in the front. "Anthony, dear, is it true that Marcus went to Asia and left you all alone?" "Yes, Amelia. He went with Victoria. They have business plans over there." "And how are you going to live, sweetie? We all know Rebecca didn't leave much money." If you only knew, I thought. "Don't worry, Amelia. I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I can bring you some tools, help you with repairs. You're very kind, but I'm fine, really." Amelia looked at me with that expression I knew well. It was the same look I had received after the memorial. Compassion mixed with a little relief that it wasn't her tragedy. "Well, you know where to find me if you need anything." These conversations were constantly repeated. The mechanic, the pharmacist, the guy at the corner cafe. Everyone spoke to me with that soft tone they use with the unfortunate, and I would nod, smile, and thank them for their concern. But inside, a part of me enjoyed this performance. It was like living a double life. Mr. Patterson called me one Thursday morning. "Mr. Brooks, I have good news. I was able to nullify the sale of the mountain cabin. The buyers didn't know the sale was fraudulent, so they got their money back without any problems. The cabin is yours again." "Excellent, Mr. Patterson. And the complex where Marcus lives? That one is more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner through the firm, but we need to make some administrative changes so that you have direct control. That should take another 3 weeks." "Perfect. Keep me informed." After hanging up, I sat in the den with my coffee and thought about Marcus. He had been in Asia for 2 weeks, and I hadn't heard anything from him. Not a call, not a message, not even an email. To him, I had ceased to exist the moment he got the money he needed, but I knew that was going to change soon. I decided to visit the mountain cabin. I took the train to the hills, the same route Rebecca and I had taken hundreds of times. The cabin was exactly as I remembered it, small, painted gray, with a deck overlooking the valley. The new owners had put some hanging baskets on the railing, but other than that, everything was the same. I sat on the bench across the road and looked at it for an hour. I remembered winter evenings when Marcus was little, skiing on the slopes and building snowmen, Rebecca baking pies in the oven while I chopped wood for the fireplace, Marcus bringing friends, then girlfriends, then Victoria, all those happy moments that he had reduced to a simple commercial transaction. An older lady came out of the cabin and saw me sitting there. She approached me with curiosity. "Are you okay, sir?" "Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering. I knew the former owners. Yes, I knew them very well. What a shame about what happened. They told us the elderly gentleman was very ill and needed to sell fast. We thought it was a bargain, but it turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to give the cabin back. Did you know them personally?" "No, we did everything through intermediaries, but they told us the son was handling everything because the father couldn't." What a sad situation. If you only knew how sad it really was, I thought. "Well, I'm glad you didn't lose your money." "Yes, luckily everything worked out well." Although now we have to look for another cabin. We liked this one a lot. I left there with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was the ease with which Marcus had lied about me. He had made up a story about my illness. He had used my supposed vulnerability to justify his actions. To him, I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that had to be removed. That night, I called Mr. Patterson again. "Mr. Patterson, I need you to help me with something else. I want to get Rebecca's van back, too." "That will be more difficult, Mr. Brooks. The van was in your name, but your son had a power of attorney that allowed him to sell it. How is that possible?" "Apparently, you signed that power of attorney a few months ago after your wife's death. Don't you remember?" There it was, the moment Marcus had started planning all of this. I vaguely remembered signing some papers he had brought to me, telling me they were to facilitate the memorial and inheritance arrangements. I had been so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. "I understand, Mr. Patterson. Is there any way to get it back?" "We can try, but it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power of attorney under deception or coercion." "Let's do it. I want to get back everything they took from me." Over the next few weeks, I developed a strange routine. In the mornings, I was the poor widower everyone knew. I would go out to buy necessities, talk to the neighbors, and keep up appearances. But in the afternoons, I became a businessman. I would study Rebecca's documents, talk to Mr. Patterson, and plan my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I would need to know. I discovered that Rebecca had been much smarter than I thought. Every one of her investments had been carefully calculated. The complex where Marcus lived, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent, it was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered that Victoria, Marcus's wife, had a lot of debt. She had taken out loans using the office they lived in as collateral, not knowing she wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, she was going to be in serious trouble. Mr. Patterson called me one Monday with important news. "Mr. Brooks, we've finished all the paperwork. You now have total control of all your properties. I also got Rebecca's van back. The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation." "Excellent work, Mr. Patterson. Now I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my son." "What kind of letter?" "An eviction notice." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mr. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this?" "Completely sure. He decided I wasn't important in his life. Now he's going to find out how important I really am." "I understand. Do you want me to send it to Asia?" "No. I want you to give it to him when he gets back. I have a feeling it's going to be very soon." I wasn't wrong. That same evening, Amelia came running to my house with fresh neighborhood news. "Anthony, did you know that Victoria is in trouble with the bank? My sister-in-law who works there told me they're investigating some loans she took out using the office they live in as collateral, but it turns out the office isn't hers." "Really?" "Yes, and it seems Marcus didn't know anything. They're saying he's going to have to come back from Asia to sort out this mess." What a complicated situation. "Yes, and the worst part is, apparently Victoria lied to him about the business in Asia. There was no business. She just wanted to escape the debts she had here." Perfect. Everything was working out exactly as I had expected. Marcus had trusted Victoria, had sacrificed his relationship with me for her, and now he was discovering that she wasn't the woman he thought she was. That night, I sat on the deck with a cup of coffee and looked at the stars. Rebecca used to say that the stars were the souls of people who had lived a full life watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, then she was up there, watching her plan unfold perfectly. "Thank you, my love," I said to the sky. "Thank you for taking care of me, even after your death." The next day, Mr. Patterson called me early. "Mr. Brooks, I have some news. Your son just arrived in the country. He's at the airport alone." "Alone?" "Yes. Apparently Victoria stayed in Asia. There are rumors they had a very big fight." "I see. Did you send the letter?" "I'm going to send it today. He should receive it tomorrow." I hung up the phone and stood there in the den, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. After so many weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had finally arrived. Marcus was about to discover that his father was not the defenseless victim he believed. Marcus arrived at his office on Wednesday night. I knew this because Amelia, who seemed to have informants throughout the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day. "Anthony, your son came back last night. I saw him go in with one suitcase, but he looked terrible, pale with dark circles under his eyes, as if he had been crying the whole flight. Alone, completely alone. And something strange, Anthony. When the security guard asked him for the keys, he didn't have them.
He had to ask the manager to let him in with the emergency copy. Interesting. Victoria had the keys, which meant she had probably decided not to come back. Or maybe Marcus had discovered something about her and had fled. In any case, my son was back, and very soon he would receive my little welcome gift. Mr. Patterson called me that same evening. "Mr. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The guard confirmed that your son received it in person." "Perfect. How long did we give him?" 30 days to vacate the office as per legal standards. "But, Mr. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this? He is your son after all." "Mr. Patterson, my son kicked me out of my own cabin with a 2-minute phone call. He sold my things without asking. He treated me like garbage. Now he's going to learn that actions have consequences." "I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications." "I have considered them, Mr. Patterson, all of them." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, imagining Marcus's face when he read the letter. The initial confusion, then the disbelief, then the panic. He would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam him, But when he called to verify, he would discover that everything was completely legal. The next day, as if he had been waiting for my call, the phone rang at 8 in the morning. It was Marcus, and his voice sounded desperate. "Dad, Dad, I need to talk to you urgently." "Good morning, son. How was Asia?" "Dad, I don't have time for that right now. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my office in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this?" "An eviction notice? How strange. From whom?" "From a company I've never heard of. It's called... Wait, let me find the letter. Rebecca Ventures, Inc. Do you know this company?" Rebecca had used her own name for the company. How poetic. "No, son, I've never heard that name. Are you sure the letter is legitimate?" "That's what I want to find out. Dad, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Victoria left me in Asia. She ran off with another man, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening." There was the confirmation. Victoria had abandoned him, probably when the money ran out, or when she realized that the legal problems at home were more serious than she thought. Poor Marcus. He had sacrificed his family for a worthless woman. "I'm so sorry, son. Where are you now?" "I'm in the office, but I don't know for how long. Dad, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else." The irony was perfect. Now that he was left without the woman for whom he had abandoned me, he remembered he had a father. "Of course, son. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way." I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative brown suit, tied my tie in a simple knot, and practiced my expression of a worried but resigned father. When Marcus arrived, he would see exactly what he expected to see: a poor, vulnerable widower who had been abandoned by his own son. Marcus arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad he looked. He had lost weight, had deep circles under his eyes, and his expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. His eyes were red from crying. "Dad," he said, and for a moment I thought he was going to hug me, but he stopped as if he suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. "Come in, son. Do you want some coffee?" "Yes, please." We sat in the den at the same table where I had read Rebecca's documents weeks ago. Marcus looked small in that chair, lost, just like he was when he was a child, and came to tell me about his playground problems. "Dad, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, son." "No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things. And now..." His voice broke. "Now I have no one." "What happened with Victoria?" "She left with a 28-year-old tour guide in Tokyo. It turns out there was never any business in Asia. It was all a lie. She just wanted to escape the debts she had here and use the money from the sale of your cabin to fund her adventure." "All the debts?" "Yes, Dad, so many debts. It seems she had been taking out loans for years, using the office we lived in as collateral. But now I find out she wasn't the owner of the office. How is that possible?" Here was my opportunity. "I don't know, son. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for her debts. They say since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Dad, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live." He started to cry, real tears of genuine desperation, and for a moment my father's heart softened. I wanted to hug him, console him, tell him everything would be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in his voice when he called me from the dentist's office, the ease with which he had discarded me, the way he had talked to me as if I were a burden. "Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter?" "I don't have money for a lawyer, Dad. We spent all the money in Asia. Victoria took what little was left when she ran off with that man. So what are you going to do?" "I don't know."
I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live. There was the question I had been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own cabin, after selling my things, after treating me like garbage, he now wanted me to rescue him. He wanted the poor widower he had created to save him from the consequences of his own actions. Of course, son, this will always be your home. Marcus looked at me with surprise, as if he hadn't expected it to be so easy. Really, Dad? After everything that happened? You are my son, Marcus. That will never change. He got up, and this time he hugged me. It was a desperate hug from someone drowning and clinging to the only thing they can find. I hugged him back too, but not with the unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace, strategy. Thank you, Dad. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll see what your options are. Marcus left that evening to get some things from his office. I stayed in the den, thinking about how easy it had been. He had come to me exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, with no options, and best of all, he suspected nothing. To him, I was still the poor, abandoned father who needed his compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having him live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let him settle in, feel safe, and believe he had found a refuge in my house. And then, when he least expected it, I was going to teach him the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson, I need you to do something else for me. Tell me, Mr. Brooks, I want you to investigate Victoria's debts. I want to know exactly how much she owes to whom and what legal options I have to separate them from my son. That will take time, but it's feasible. Perfect. And, Mr. Patterson, I want you to keep this in absolute secret. No one can know I am behind this investigation. Of course, Mr. Brooks. May I ask what your final plan is? My plan, Mr. Patterson, is very simple. I'm going to save my son, but first he has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom. When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of the whiskey Rebecca had been saving for special occasions. It had been a long time since I'd had a special occasion like this one. The game had begun, and for the first time in months, I had all the good cards in my hand. Marcus moved into my house the next day. He arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, all that was left of his previous life. I watched him unpack in his old room, the same one he had slept in during his teenage years, and I could see the humiliation in every one of his movements. He had gone from living in a luxury office to taking refuge in his childhood bedroom. Dad, I found this in the office, he said, showing me a brown folder. It was among Victoria's things. It has your name on it. It was another one of Rebecca's folders. My heart sped up, but I kept my composure. My name? How strange. Yes, look. He showed me the folder. Indeed, it had my name written on it in Rebecca's handwriting, but this folder was different from the one I had found in my cabinet. This one was smaller, newer. Maybe Victoria found it among Mom's things when she died and forgot to give it to me, Marcus said. It's possible. Can I see it? I opened the folder in his presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter said, Anthony, if you are reading this after having received the main folder, it means our son is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the main bank Uptown branch. The number is 358. There is something there that can help you help him, but use it wisely. With eternal love, Rebecca. Marcus read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box? Mom had a safety deposit box? I had no idea. I didn't either, I lied. Your mother never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's in there? I don't know, son. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. But Dad, maybe there's something important in there. Documents, or I don't know, maybe something valuable that can help us. The desperation in his voice was palpable. Marcus was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of his situation, and I was going to let him cling a little longer before I showed him the complete reality. Okay, I said, after a calculated pause, we can go tomorrow. That night, Marcus and I had dinner together for months. He had cooked, trying to be useful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. He told me more details about what had happened in Asia, and each story was worse than the last. Victoria lied about everything, Dad, not just the business, but the debts too. I thought she only owed a little bit of money, but it turns out she owes over $150,000. And the worst part is she used my name for some of the loans without me knowing. How is that possible? She forged my signature. When I married her, I gave her some documents to handle the banking for our joint account.
I never thought she'd use them for this. Do you have any way to prove you didn't know? I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say that since we were married, I'm responsible for all her debts anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where Victoria is now. She just disappeared. Her phone is disconnected. She doesn't answer emails. Nothing. It's as if she vanished. Perfect. Victoria had run away like the rat she had always been, leaving Marcus to face the consequences of his actions alone. In a way, she had done me a favor. Now my son was experiencing exactly what I had felt when he abandoned me. Betrayal by someone he had completely trusted. I'm so sorry, son. I didn't know things were so bad. I didn't either, Dad. I thought Victoria loved me, that we were going to build something together. But it turns out I was just an easy way for her to get money and documents. Marcus started to cry again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not realize who she really was? It was tempting to tell him that I had seen the signs from the beginning, that I had tried to warn him that Victoria never seemed trustworthy, but that would have broken my facade as a compassionate and vulnerable father. Love can be blinding sometimes, son. Don't blame yourself. But Dad, I didn't just ruin my life, I ruined yours too. I treated you horribly. I took your cabin, your van, your things, and all to give to a woman who abandoned me at the first opportunity. Now we're two poor men trying to survive because of me. It's in the past, Marcus. We'll be okay. No, it's not. Now we're both in trouble because of my mistakes. You lost everything Mom left you, and I lost my marriage and my future. We're two poor men trying to survive. If he only knew, I thought, that at this very moment I had more money than he could possibly imagine, that I was the owner of the complex where he lived, that I could solve all his problems with a single phone call. But it wasn't time yet. The next day we went to the bank. Marcus was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act as a confused widower who didn't understand much about finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit boxes, verified my ID, and opened box number 358. Inside were stocks, many stocks, certificates, bonds, shares. I recognized some pieces as heirlooms from Rebecca's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and its approximate value. Marcus gasped. Dad, this must be worth a fortune. You think so? Yes. Look at this bond in this tech firm. Dad, Mom saved a treasure here. According to Rebecca's letter, the stocks were worth approximately $250,000. It was a significant amount, but it was nothing compared to the rest of my assets. It was like finding a few coins under the sofa when you have $1 million in the bank. What do we do with this, Dad? I don't know, son. They're family memories. But Dad, we could sell some of the pieces. With this money, you could get your mountain cabin back, and I could pay off some of Victoria's debts. There it was again. Even when he found something valuable, Marcus's first reaction was to think about how to use it to solve the problems Victoria had created. He hadn't learned a thing yet. Are you sure you want to use your mother's inheritance to pay Victoria's debts? What other option do I have, Dad? If I don't pay something soon, the banks are going to foreclose on everything I have. And technically, I don't own anything. Everything was in Victoria's name. Think carefully, son. Once you sell these stocks, you won't be able to get them back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal claims pending. No employer is going to want to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the stocks home. Marcus spread them out on the den table and examined them one by one, calculating which ones he could sell and which he could keep. It was painful to watch him reduce decades of family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. Dad, I think I can get $220,000 for the stocks, he said one evening, counting the bills on the den table. It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts.
Are you sure you want to do this? I have no choice, Dad. If I don't pay something soon, they'll seize everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have some kind of legal connection to the properties. How ironic the situation was. Marcus was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying the debts of a woman who had abandoned him with money from stocks that had belonged to the same woman who had created the fortune that could save him. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I talked to a free financial advisor at the bank. He told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral, because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Marcus had matured so much in these few weeks. The man who had sold my things without consulting me now was carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made him more responsible, but also more fragile. That night, while he was organizing the debt documents on the table, I received a call from Mr. Patterson. "Mr. Brooks, I have a full report on Victoria's debts. The situation is worse than I thought." "How much worse?" "She owes over $250,000 to several banks and also has debts with private lenders. What's more concerning is that she used falsified documents with your son's signature for some of these loans."
That means Marcus is legally responsible. It's complicated. If we can prove he didn't know, we might be able to get him out of some of the debts, but it's going to be a long and expensive process. How expensive for a good lawyer specializing in these types of cases? Probably $60,000, and there's no guarantee of success. I understand. And what if he just pays the debts? If he has the money, that would be the fastest solution, but I doubt he has access to that amount. Mr. Patterson, I want you to prepare all the necessary documents to get my son out of these debts, but don't tell him anything yet. You're going to pay Mr. Brooks? I'm going to do whatever is necessary to protect my son, but this has to be handled in a very specific way. When I hung up, I found Marcus in the living room, looking at the stocks with a sad expression. He looked lost, like a child who had broken his favorite toy and didn't know how to fix it. "What are you thinking about, son? About Mom? About how disappointed she would be in me if she could see what I did with my life? Your mother loved you very much, Marcus. She would understand." "No, Dad. She taught me to be responsible, to value family, not to be selfish, and I did the exact opposite. I abandoned my father for a woman who turned out to be a liar. I sold my family's memories for money. I ruined everything she built." For the first time since he had returned, I heard a genuine regret in his voice. It wasn't just lamenting the consequences of his actions, but a true acknowledgement that he had done something morally wrong. "People make mistakes, son. The important thing is to learn from them." "But how do I learn from this, Dad? How do I fix the damage I've done?" There was the question I had been waiting for. Marcus was finally ready to face the truth about his actions and their consequences. But it wasn't yet time to reveal my final card. First, I had to let him hit rock bottom completely. The next few days were crucial for my plan. Marcus decided to sell most of the stocks, keeping only the wedding band Rebecca had given me and a small certificate that had belonged to his grandfather. I watched him prepare to go to the brokers, research prices, and negotiate with buyers. It was painful to watch him reduce decades of family history to commercial transactions, but it was necessary for him to understand the real weight of his decisions. "Dad, I got $220,000 for the stocks," he told me one evening, counting the bills on the den table. "It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do this?" "I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll foreclose on everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have some kind of legal connection to the properties." How ironic the situation was. Marcus was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying the debts of a woman who had abandoned him, with money from stocks that had belonged to the same woman who had created the fortune that could save him. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I talked to a free financial advisor at the bank. He told me to prioritize the bets that have real collateral, because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Marcus had matured so much in these few weeks. The man who had sold my things without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made him more responsible, but also more fragile. That night, while he was organizing the debt documents on the table, I received a call from Mr. Patterson. "Mr. Brooks, I have important news. We managed to locate Victoria."
Where is she? In Tokyo, just as your son suspected. But here's the interesting part. She's trying to get Japanese residency through a fake marriage with that young man your son mentioned. A fake marriage? Yes. Apparently, the guy needs papers, and she needs a way to stay in Asia without being deported. But the most important thing is that we found evidence that she deliberately falsified your son's documents with the intention of fleeing the country. That means Marcus can get out of the debts. With this evidence, yes, we can prove fraud and coercion. Your son won't have to pay anything for what Victoria did behind his back. It was perfect. I had a way to save Marcus from all his debts legally without him suspecting that I had the money to do it. Mr. Patterson, I want you to start the legal process immediately. Don't tell my son anything yet. I want the process to be completely finished before I tell him. I don't want to give him false hope. Understood. This will take about 4 weeks, maybe a month. Perfect. When I hung up, Marcus looked at me with curiosity. Who was that, Dad? A guy who was asking about Mr. Thompson, our neighbor down the block. He had the wrong number. Lying had become easy. Every day that passed, I felt more comfortable with this double life I was leading. On one hand, I was the poor, abandoned father Marcus believed me to be. On the other, I was a wealthy man, silently orchestrating my son's salvation and education. Over the next few weeks, I watched Marcus struggle with decisions he never had to make: how to stretch money for supplies, how to negotiate with creditors, how to look for a job when your credit history is ruined. It was a cruel but necessary education. Dad, I went to 3 job interviews today, he told me one morning, coming home with sore feet and a tired face.
2 of them told me they can't hire me because of the pending legal problems. The third one offered me a part-time job stocking shelves at night. Are you going to take it? I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing. And I can work at night so I can keep looking for something better during the day. Seeing my son, who had lived a comfortable life for over 40 years, preparing to stock shelves at night, broke my heart. But it also filled me with pride. He was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve his problems. Are you sure you can handle so much physical work? I'll have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Dad. It's bad enough that you're letting me live here for free. This is your home, Marcus. No, Dad. This is your home, and I'm here because of your generosity. But I'm not going to take advantage of it forever. One night, while Marcus was on his first stocking shift, Amelia came to visit. She sat in the den with me, drinking coffee and looking at the family photos on the walls. Anthony, I have to ask you something. Did you know Marcus was going to come back in these conditions? What do you mean? Well, when he left, he seemed so sure of himself, so arrogant. He talked about the great life he was going to have in Asia, about how successful Victoria was. And now he's back, completely broken, working a stocking job, living with you again. Life takes many turns, Amelia. Yes, but there's something else. I've been watching Marcus these days, and he looks different. Not just sad, but humble, as if he learned something important. Amelia had always been very perceptive. What do you think he learned? I think he learned the value of the things he had taken for granted, like having a father who loves him unconditionally. Maybe. Amelia, can I tell you something? When Marcus left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you would never forgive him. But here you are, taking care of him again, giving him a home when he has nowhere to go. He's my son, Amelia. Yes, but not every father would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated. If Amelia only knew the complete truth, that I had the power to solve all of Marcus's problems, but was choosing to let him suffer a little longer so he would learn the full lesson. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're doing what a good father would do, but I also think Marcus needs to fully understand what he lost when he abandoned you. What do you mean? I think he needs to value you not just as the father who rescues him when he's in trouble, but as the strong man who built a stable life for 45 years. He needs to respect you, not just need you. Amelia had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my entire plan. I didn't want Marcus to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted him to come back out of genuine respect and mature love. And how do you think that can happen? I think it's already happening.
I've seen him these past few days, Anthony. The way he talks to you now is completely different. He's no longer the son who gives you orders or treats you like a burden. Now he's a grown man who is genuinely grateful to have a father like you. That night, when Marcus returned from his job, I saw him arrive tired, but with a new dignity. He had earned those few dollars with his own effort, and that meant something to him. How was your first day? Hard, but not as bad as I thought. The other guys who worked there helped me a lot. One of them, Mr. Williams, taught me tricks to stock shelves more efficiently. Mr. Williams? Yes. He's 65 years old and has been stocking shelves for 25 years. He told me he started after his wife left him with 2 small children. He says it's not the job he dreamed of, but that it gave him independence and dignity. He sounds like a wise man. He is. And he said something that made me think a lot. He told me there are 2 types of people who end up doing this job. The ones who were there because they never had opportunities, and the ones who were there because they ruined the opportunities they did have. He asked me which group I was in, and what did he tell him? I told him the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world, a family that loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and that I ruined it all by following a worthless woman. What did he say? He laughed and said, "Well, buddy, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you 1 step ahead of most people." Marcus poured himself a glass of water and sat with me at the table. "Dad, I want you to know something. These past few weeks have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important. Why? Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the most luxurious office. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart." Marcus, no. Let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Mom left you. I treated you as if you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again expecting you to forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, son, but I haven't forgiven myself, and I won't until I prove that I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes.
Mr. Patterson called me the next morning. "Mr. Brooks, I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can get your son out of all of Victoria's debts." It was time. After weeks of watching Marcus struggle, work, and reflect on his mistakes, the moment had finally arrived to show him that he had never been alone, that he had always had someone quietly watching over him. "Mr. Patterson, I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my son to know the whole truth." Mr. Patterson arranged the meeting for Monday morning at his office. I told Marcus that I had made an appointment with a lawyer who could help him with his legal problems, but I didn't explain the details. He agreed to come, although he was nervous about the cost of the consultation. "Dad, I don't have money to pay a lawyer. I barely have enough to cover basic expenses." "Don't worry about that now, son. Let's just hear what he has to say." We arrived at Mr. Patterson's office on time. Marcus had dressed in his best clothes, which now looked a little big on his thinner body. He was nervous, wringing his hands, expecting another piece of bad news on his endless list of problems. Mr. Patterson greeted us with his usual professional smile. Mr. Brooks, thank you for coming." "Thank you for seeing us," Marcus replied, "although I should warn you that my financial situation is very complicated and I probably can't afford high fees." "That's exactly what we're going to talk about," Mr. Patterson said, exchanging a look with me. "But first, I need you to review these documents." Mr. Patterson handed Marcus a thick folder. He opened it and began to read, his expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. I don't understand. These documents say that Victoria forged my signature, that there's evidence of fraud, that I'm not responsible for the debts." "That's right. We have been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove that you were a victim of identity fraud." "But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have money for this." Mr. Patterson looked at me. It was my moment. "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you." "What, Dad?" I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. "Your mother left me more than you knew. Much more." "What do you mean?" "Mr. Patterson, show him the other documents." Mr. Patterson took out a second folder and handed it to Marcus. This time, the documents were the property titles, the bank statements, the investment certificates, the entire fortune Rebecca had built in secret.
Marcus read in silence for several minutes. His face went through a complete range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, comprehension. "Dad, this says you are the owner of the complex where I lived." "Yes." "And that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments?" "Yes." "This means that when I sold the mountain cabin, it was my cabin, and the sale was fraudulent. I already got it back." Marcus stared at the papers, trying to process the information. "How long have you known this?" "Since the day you called me from the dentist's office." "You knew all this when I came back from Asia asking for help?" "Yes." "You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night?" "Yes." There was a long, tense silence. Marcus closed the folders and looked directly into my eyes. "Why, Dad? Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me?" This was the question I had been waiting for weeks. "Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way." "What?" "You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost, the value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took from me. It was dignity, it was love, it was trust." Marcus started to cry, but they weren't tears of self-pity like the ones he had shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. "I abandoned you when you needed me most." "Yes." "I treated you like garbage." "Yes." "And you saved me anyway." "Yes, but not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself." Mr. Patterson discreetly intervened. "Mr. Brooks, your father has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Victoria's debts. He has also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You are completely free of legal problems." "And the stocking job I got?" "You can quit if you want," I said, "but I hope you don't." "Why?" "Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn." Marcus wiped his tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a son who needs his father, but the look of a grown man who respects another man. "Do you forgive me, Dad?" "I forgave you a long time ago, son. The question is, can you forgive yourself?" "I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things." "People make mistakes, Marcus. The important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes." Mr. Patterson left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Marcus and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. "Dad, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you were really the poor widower I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson." "What lesson?" "That there is nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past few weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing I had a home with you."
That no matter how much I had ruined my life, you were still my father. That will never change, Marcus. I know. But I also know that I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it every day, with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just words. We left Mr. Patterson's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer father and son united by blood and habit. We were two grown men who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test imaginable. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not the kind Marcus expected. Even though he now knew I had enough resources to solve all his problems, he decided to keep his night stocking job. "Dad, I need to finish what I started," he told me one morning as he was getting ready for work. "I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened." "Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself forever." "It's not a punishment. It's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now." I watched him put on his work uniform, something unthinkable a few months ago when he lived in the luxury office with Victoria. But there was something different in his posture, in the way he moved. He was no longer the broken man who had arrived crying at my door. He was someone who had found dignity in honest work. Amelia came to visit that morning, as she had done every few days since Marcus had returned.
She had become a confidant to both of us, watching our transformation with fascination. Anthony, there are some very strange rumors going around the neighborhood. What kind of rumors? People are saying that you're not as poor as we all thought. Someone saw Marcus leaving a very elegant lawyer's office uptown, and then they saw him paying off all his debts at the bank. People talk a lot, Amelia. Yes, but they're also saying you got your mountain cabin back and that somehow you managed to solve all of Marcus's legal problems. That costs a lot of money, Anthony. Amelia knew me too well to fool her for long. What do you want to know exactly? I want to know if my friend of 40 years has been lying to me about his situation. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat across from her. It was time to be honest with someone else. Rebecca left me more than anyone knew. Amelia, much more. How much more? Enough so that Marcus and I never have to worry about money again. Amelia was silent for a moment, processing the information. And why did you pretend to be poor all these months? Because I needed Marcus to learn something he couldn't learn any other way. I told her the whole story. Marcus's cruel phone call, my plan of silent revenge, the weeks of watching him hit rock bottom, and finally the revelation in Mr. Patterson's office. Anthony, that is brilliant and terrible at the same time. Terrible. Yes, because you let your own son suffer when you could have helped him immediately. But also brilliant because I understand why you did it. You do? Yes. Marcus needed to learn the value of the thing he had lost. If you had simply given him money to solve his problems, he would have learned that there's always someone who will rescue him from the consequences of his bad decisions. Exactly. But Anthony, didn't it hurt you to see him suffer? Every day. Every night I saw him crying. Every morning I saw him get up to go to work tired and defeated, but I knew that if I rescued him too soon, he wouldn't have learned the full lesson. And do you think he learned it? Look for yourself. Marcus knows that he now has access to enough money to live comfortably, but he chose to keep his job. He knows he can move to a better place, but he decided to stay here with me. He knows he doesn't have to worry about the debts, but he's using his own savings to help other men in similar situations. He's helping other men? Yes, he became friends with the guys he works with and is using some of the money he earned stocking shelves to help a coworker who is having trouble paying for his daughter's school. Amelia smiled. That's not the Marcus who went to Asia. No, he's not. This Marcus understands that money is a tool, not a goal. He understands that dignity comes from work and respect, not from material possessions. That night, when Marcus returned from work, I found him reading in the living room. Dad, I have to tell you something. Today, Mr. Williams asked me if I was the son of the rich guy from the south side of town. What did he tell him? I said yes, that you have enough money for me not to have to work. And do you know what he asked me next? What? He asked me why I was still working. So I explained that it was because I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet. And what did he say? He laughed and said, "Buddy, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your dad taught you how to be truly rich." Mr. Williams is very wise. He is. And he made me understand something important. It's not about the money you have, but about how you use it and how you relate to it. Marcus sat down with me on the sofa. Dad, I want you to know that I've made a decision. I'm going to keep living here with you, but not as a son who has come back home to his parents. I want to stay here as a grown man who chooses to share his life with his father. What's the difference? The difference is that I'm going to pay my share of the expenses. I'm going to contribute to the upkeep of the house, and I'm going to treat this relationship as a partnership between 2 independent men who love and respect each other. Marcus, you don't need to.
Yes, I do. Dad, I need our relationship to be different from what it was before. Before, I was a son who took his father's love and care for granted. Now, I want to be a grown man who values and takes care of the most important relationship in his life. And your job? I'm going to keep working, but not necessarily stocking shelves forever. I want to go back to school.
I want to prepare myself to do something more meaningful with my life. But I want to do it step by step, earning every opportunity. Do you have any idea what you want to study? Yes, I want to study community service. These past few weeks have taught me how many people are going through difficult situations without having anyone to support them. I want to use the resources we have to help other men who are going through what I went through. It was perfect. Marcus had not only learned to value what he had, but he had found a way to use his experience for something constructive. And what about Victoria? Mr. Patterson told me she was arrested in Japan for the fraudulent marriage. She's going to be deported soon, but honestly, Dad, I don't care anymore. That part of my life is over. You don't feel any resentment? No, Victoria did me a favor without even knowing it. If she hadn't abandoned and betrayed me, I never would have hit rock bottom. And if I had never hit rock bottom, I never would have learned to truly value what I have. That night, for the first time in months, I went to bed completely at peace. My plan had worked perfectly. Marcus had not only learned the lessons he needed to learn, but he had emerged from the experience as a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. Rebecca would have been so proud. 7 months later, our life had found a new balance that neither of us could have imagined before. Marcus finished his community service studies with excellent grades, and I decided to use some of my resources to establish a foundation to help men in situations of domestic violence and financial abandonment. Dad, the letter from the college arrived, Marcus said one evening, coming into the den with an envelope in his hands. I was accepted into the advanced program. I start next quarter. But Dad, I want you to know I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving money from my job at the warehouse. The salary isn't high, but he had learned to live with the essentials and to value every dollar he earned. Are you sure? We can easily afford the advanced program. I know, but I need to do it on my own. It's part of who I am now. Amelia came to visit that evening, as she had done every Saturday for the past few months. She had become a confidant to both of us, watching our transformation with fascination. Anthony, I have to confess something, she said, pouring herself a second cup of coffee. At first, I thought you were very cruel to Marcus. And what do you think now? Now, I think you are the wisest father I've ever known. Look at your son. Really, look at him. It was true. The Marcus who was in the living room studying for his exams was completely different from the one who had left for Asia months ago. This Marcus had a serenity that came from within, a confidence that was based on his own achievements, not on material possessions. Did you know I saw Marcus at the hardware store yesterday buying supplies for a family he's helping through his job? He hadn't told me. And when I asked him why he was using his own money instead of the government budget, he told me that some things can't be measured in official budgets. That night, Marcus and I had dinner on the deck, something that had become a tradition. It was our time to talk about the day, plan for the future, and simply enjoy each other's company. Dad, I received a very strange letter today, he said, cutting his sandwich. From whom? From Victoria? My muscles tensed. Victoria? She wrote to you? From where? From prison in Japan. Apparently, she was sentenced to 3 years for marriage fraud. In the letter, she says she regrets everything she did and wants to ask for my forgiveness. And how do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to write back? No, not because I hate her, but because there's nothing to say. That Marcus who married her no longer exists. This Marcus has nothing to talk to her about. I was impressed by the maturity in his voice. The man sitting across from me had developed an inner strength that came from hitting rock bottom and getting up on his own. Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Dad? What? That true love isn't the one that tells you what you want to hear. True love is the one that teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a difficult lesson to learn, but it's a necessary one. Victoria told me what I wanted to hear. She made me feel special. She convinced me that I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me that true wealth comes from hard work, respect, and genuine relationships. That night, after Marcus went to his room to study, I sat on the deck alone, looking at the stars and thinking about Rebecca. I had promised her I would take care of our son, and I finally felt I had fulfilled that promise in the right way. I hadn't taken care of him by giving him money when he needed it. I had taken care of him by teaching him to take care of himself.
I hadn't saved him by solving his problems. I had saved him by allowing him to learn to solve them on his own.
The next day was Monday, and we had planned to visit the mountain cabin together for the first time since I had gotten it back. Marcus hadn't wanted to go before, saying he needed time to process everything that had happened. "Are you ready?" I asked him as we got into the van. "I think so." The trip was silent, but comfortable. When we arrived, Marcus stood for a moment in the van, looking at the cabin where we had spent so many family winters. "It looks exactly the same," he said finally. "Some things don't change, but others do. I am not the same person who sold this cabin." We went in together. The cabin was clean and tidy, exactly as Rebecca and I had kept it for years. Marcus walked through each room, touching the furniture and looking at the family photos that hung on the walls. "Dad, I want to apologize." "You already apologized, son." "No, I want to apologize specifically for this cabin, not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction." "It's forgiven. This cabin represents 40 years of family winters, of anniversaries, of Thanksgivings. Mom decorated that deck with her own hands. You built that garden. I learned to hike on those trails, and I turned it all into money to fund the adventure of a worthless woman." He sat on the bench where Rebecca used to knit on Saturday mornings. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" "What?" "That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now, being here again, I can feel Mom in every corner. I can hear her laughter, smell her afternoon tea, see her knitting needles on the table. She is here, Marcus. She has always been here." "I know. And I also know that she is proud of how you handled all of this." We spent the whole day at the cabin, fixing meals together, cleaning and repairing small details. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not just with the place, but with the values that place represented. When the sun began to set, we sat on the deck Rebecca had decorated, looking at the valley. "Dad, I have a proposal." "What is it?" "I want us to turn this cabin into a temporary refuge for men who are leaving situations of domestic violence, a place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives." It was the perfect proposal. Rebecca would have loved the idea that her mountain cabin would serve to help other families. "I think that's a beautiful idea, son. We can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my job." "Are you sure you want to turn our family retreat into that, Dad?" "The best retreats are the ones that are shared. Mom always said that a cabin isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to other people who need love." She was right. Rebecca had always been generous with our home, inviting relatives, friends, and neighbors who needed a place to stay. We returned home that night with a new project and a completely renewed relationship. We were no longer father and son united by obligation or need. We were two men who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Rebecca in silence. "We did it, my love. Our son finally understood what truly matters. And for the first time since her death, I felt she answered me. I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think." Justice had arrived not as revenge, but as education, not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we had both gained something much more valuable than money. We had gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. If you like this story, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.